I used to believe that silence was a sign of peace, that if the house was quiet, everything was fine. But that was before Linda moved in. My name's Avery, and this isn't a story about yelling or slamming doors or the kind of conflict you can record on your phone and send to your friends with the caption, "Can you believe this?" This is about the kind of war that whispers, that hides under helpful suggestions and polite smiles. The kind of war you only realize you've been fighting when you're already bleeding from 1,000 invisible cuts. It started, like so many quiet disasters do, with a burst pipe and a favor. Linda, my husband's mother, needed a place to stay. Just for a week, she said, until her condo dried out. We said yes. Of course we did. Family helps family. She arrived with 1 suitcase and 4 boxes. Within 2 days, she'd turned our guest room into a command center, rearranged the kitchen to make it flow better, filled the fridge with her lactose-free, low-sodium, organic-only essentials. It was suffocating, but I tried to be gracious. Because that's what we do, right? We make space. We bend. We breathe through the discomfort and tell ourselves it's temporary. But Linda didn't operate on gratitude. She operated on territory. And it didn't take long for mine to shrink. She didn't knock. She didn't ask. She floated through the house like a benevolent ghost, silent, ever-present, judging. She folded laundry that wasn't hers. Accidentally moved files off my desk. Once I came home to find my spice rack alphabetized, incorrectly. But the real breaking point, it came in cardboard. See, I work from home. I'd been prepping for a case, and that meant ordering supplies, legal pads, file folders, dividers, all clearly labeled with my name. Didn't matter. Every time a package hit our doorstep, Linda would pounce like a porch pirate on a mission, ripping tape, inspecting contents, not out of curiosity, out of control. And me? I said nothing, because silence is how women are taught to survive. But what Linda didn't know is, I was done surviving. It started as a joke. One of those 2 a.m., red-eyed, rage-fueled scrolls on my laptop where you're not really looking for solutions, just relief. I typed in the search bar without thinking. Something petty, something loud, something no one could mistake for a binder or a 3-hole punch. And there it was. Pink. Oversized, ridiculously mechanical. The kind of adult novelty that came with discreet packaging. But I clicked the box that said no thank you. I wanted it bold. I wanted it obvious. Because I had tried subtle. I had tried patience. I had tried being the bigger person until I couldn't even recognize myself in the mirror anymore. This wasn't about revenge. This was about clarity. So I hit purchase, with overnight shipping. The next morning, I made coffee and sat by the front window watching the delivery app, like a strategist watching the skies before a surprise attack. Your package is 5 stops away. 4, 3, 2. I positioned the porch camera. I refreshed the app again, and then, thump. There it was, sitting innocently on the porch, like any other shipment. Except this one had a purpose. 10 seconds later, I heard it. The quick shuffle of slippers across hardwood, the creak of the front door, and then... silence. She took the bait. I waited. 10 minutes passed. 15. Not a sound from upstairs. I walked the dog slowly, casually, letting the breeze cool my nerves. When I returned, the living room was empty, except for one thing. The box. Wide open. Toy fully displayed. No bubble wrap. No apology note. Not hidden. Not returned. Just there. Like a pink vibrating totem of resistance. And Linda, she didn't say a word, didn't ask, didn't scold, didn't even make eye contact. She moved around the house that day like a ghost, a quieter one. No more humming when I passed. No friendly suggestions. Just silence. But not the peaceful kind. The loaded kind. the kind that tells you the battle isn't over, it's just entered a new phase. That night, I sat on the porch alone, sipped tea from my favorite mug, the one she'd once accidentally cracked, but I glued back together. The toy, still on the table like modern art no one dared mention. I knew I hadn't won, but I also knew I'd spoken, not with yelling, not with accusations, just with a box. And sometimes, a box is all you need. The silence didn't last, not really. It returned with sharp edges, whispers under her breath, doors that shut just a little too hard, polite smiles that didn't reach her eyes. Linda had taken the blow, but not the lesson. And now, her tactics shifted from obvious to insidious. She never mentioned the package, but she did start humming when I walked into a room, just loud enough that I'd notice, never loud enough to confront. She began forgetting things, like saving me dinner, like my laundry in the washer, now left damp on the couch, wrinkled, sometimes rewashed without asking, like the thermostat mysteriously bumped up to 76 degrees Fahrenheit, knowing full well I couldn't sleep in heat. It was all so plausible, so easy to dismiss. To my husband, everything looked fine. "She's been keeping to herself," he said one night. "I think she got the message." Sure, maybe. Except I was the one lying awake at 3 a.m., tiptoeing through my own kitchen, holding my breath when I heard footsteps in the hall. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. I snapped at work over tiny things. I found myself checking the porch cam even when I wasn't expecting deliveries, just to confirm I wasn't imagining things. Then came the Sunday morning incident. I poured myself coffee. My favorite mug, the one that said, "Breathe, you're okay," was warm in my hands. I stepped away for 10 seconds to grab almond milk. When I turned back, the mug was gone. I found it in the sink, still steaming, dumped out. Linda was wiping down the counter, smiling. "I thought that one had a chip," she said sweetly. "Didn't want you to hurt yourself." I stared at her, stunned by the precision of the move, the passive cruelty, the quiet assertion of dominance. That was the moment something inside me fractured. Later that evening, I tried to explain it to my husband, told him I didn't feel safe, that his mother wasn't just awkward or overbearing, she was eroding me from the inside out. He rubbed his temples. "She's not trying to hurt you. She just has a strong personality." I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded, said I was tired, went to bed early and locked the door behind me. From that night on, I started locking more than just the bedroom. My laptop stayed in the car. I started backing up files to a flash drive I kept in my purse. I avoided leaving dishes in the sink because she'd accidentally break things sometimes. I triple-checked the front door. I stopped leaving notes on the fridge. I was living with a woman who smiled while stepping on my boundaries like floor mats. But the worst moment came on a Tuesday. I'd left a package in the entryway, clearly labeled "important court documents" inside. I planned to bring it in after walking the dog. When I returned, gone. I asked her about it calmly. She looked up from her tea and said, "Oh, that." I thought it was trash. Trash. That word echoed in my chest like a bell inside an empty church. And then she added, without even blinking, "You know, if you weren't so sensitive, things wouldn't feel so hard all the time." That was it. That was the moment. I walked to the kitchen, hands shaking, eyes burning, and I turned back to her. "Why are you always trying to provoke me?" She blinked. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, come on. The toothbrush, the coffee, the thermostat. You opened every package with my name on it, and now you accidentally threw away court documents." "I was trying to help," she said. "Helpful?" I snapped. "You've been sabotaging me since the day you got here." And then she said it. Calm, precise. "You'll never be good enough for him." My body reacted before my brain did. I screamed. I know I did. I said things, true things, but in a voice I hadn't heard from myself before. I was trembling, raw, unraveling, And of course, that's when my husband walked in. Half awake, confused. Linda turned to him, tears forming like clockwork. "She's attacking me," she said, "over a package." I looked at him, and he hesitated, just for a second. But it was enough. He didn't speak, just stood there, caught between us, bleary-eyed in a t-shirt and socks, trying to assess the wreckage without understanding the war that caused it. "Did you say that, Mom?" he asked quietly. Linda sniffed. "I don't remember the exact words. I might have said she's having trouble adjusting, but I never meant harm." That phrase again, never meant harm, the ultimate shield of polite cruelty. I didn't argue, I didn't cry. I just walked upstairs, packed a duffel bag with essentials, and left. Not because I was giving up, but because I needed space, air, silence that wasn't weaponized. I texted him that night. "I can't come home until she's gone." He replied, "Can we talk tomorrow?" We did. We sat in a parking lot near his office, engine running, coffee in hand, and I told him everything. Not just about the coffee mug or the toothbrush or the thermostat. I told him about the feeling of being erased in my own home, the paranoia, the isolation, the way I had started to disappear. He listened, really listened. Then I showed him the footage, the porch cam clips, every time Linda intercepted a package meant for me. The one with the adult toy. Her expression, the way she opened it, then casually left it on display like a silent dare. I showed him the log of thermostat changes, photos of wrinkled laundry dumped across furniture, screenshots of passive-aggressive messages. He sat quietly through it all. And when I was done, he asked one question I hadn't expected. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I looked at him, really looked. "Because I didn't want you to have to choose," I said. And he whispered, "Maybe I should have." That was the shift, not loud, not cinematic, but real. He went home that night and told her she needed to leave. He offered to help her find a short-term rental, said he'd cover costs, offered to help pack. She cried, of course, said I was tearing the family apart, said I had manipulated him, said he'd regret this. But for once, he didn't flinch. She moved out that weekend, and not quietly. She unplugged the coffee maker, took a handful of forks, deleted our saved shows from the streaming apps. Just enough to remind us she was leaving, but not defeated. When the door finally closed behind her, I stood in the entryway and exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. But peace didn't come all at once. I still jumped when I heard footsteps. I still checked the locks. I still hesitated before grabbing a coffee mug, just in case it had a crack. Healing, it turns out, isn't a straight line. It's a spiral. Some days you feel strong. Other days you're folding laundry and start crying because it smells like the life you used to have. But slowly, things shifted. We made new rules. No more unannounced visits. No more just for a week. No more pretending politeness is the same as peace. My husband started therapy. He wanted to understand the dynamics he'd been raised in. The loyalty that felt like love, but really was just obligation soaked in guilt. We started talking again. Really talking. Not just about Linda, but about us. What we wanted our home to feel like. Who we were without the performance. One night I found the box again. The pink one. It had been sitting in the trunk of my car for weeks. A joke. A battle flag. A memory. I wrapped it in old newspaper and dropped it into a donation bin out near the woods. Not because I was ashamed, but because I was done. Done proving myself. Done shrinking. Done staying silent. And as I drove home, windows down, music playing, I realized something no one ever tells you about finally speaking up. You don't win by yelling louder. You win by refusing to be made small. We didn't go back to how things were. And maybe that was the point. After Linda moved out, our house felt hollow for a while. Not because she was gone, but but because the constant tension was. The silence, once threatening, now felt unfamiliar. But it was silence I chose, and that made all the difference. I started reclaiming small pieces of myself. I played music while I cooked, songs I liked, not ones she deemed too loud. I burned candles that filled the room with lavender and cedar. I stopped double-checking the thermostat. I stopped asking permission to exist comfortably in my own space. And my husband, he was trying. Not perfectly, not quickly, but earnestly. He apologized. Not with excuses, but with actions. He asked questions he used to avoid, and listened without defending her. We talked, for real, about boundaries, about patterns, about the version of love he was raised to normalize, where help was a weapon and family was used like a trapdoor. It wasn't an overnight change, but it was ours. One evening, as we folded laundry together, he looked at me and said, "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I kept thinking she was trying to help." I smiled, not bitterly, just tired. She was, but only if help meant control. That night, we wrote new rules. For our marriage. For our home. Rules that didn't require yelling. Just honesty. No more guilt-based invitations. No more protecting someone who poisons peace. No more choosing silence to keep things nice. And one more. If it feels like you're walking on eggshells, you stop. You look at each other. And you talk. We agreed. There would be no next time. No more, just for a few days. No more couches claimed by someone who doesn't respect the people who live here. And if we ever became parents, we'd raise our child to know love never asks you to disappear. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter, but I was done. Done apologizing for needing space. Done justifying discomfort. Done letting someone weaponize politeness to cut me down. Linda still sends the occasional message. A clipped "hope you're well" or a cryptic "saw something that reminded me of him." We don't reply right away. Sometimes, not at all. And that's not cruelty, that's clarity. Sometimes, when the afternoon light hits our living room just right, I sit on the couch and look around. The walls are still the same beige, the shelves still hold the same old wedding photo. But the silence, it's different now. It doesn't loom, it listens. It took me far too long to realize. Peace isn't the absence of noise, it's the absence of fear. I didn't grow up learning that I was allowed to draw lines, that I could say, "This doesn't work for me," and still be a good wife, a good daughter-in-law, a good human. But the truth is, being good means nothing if it costs you yourself. Linda's shadow still flickers at the edge of memory, especially when a package arrives, and I instinctively glance at the door, wondering if it's been tampered with. Old habits take time to unlearn, but they can be unlearned. Last week, a neighbor left a pie on our porch. There was no note, no card, just sweetness wrapped in quiet. And for the first time in a long time, I brought something inside without flinching. Some stories don't end with revenge, or fireworks, or an apology that wraps everything in a neat little bow. Sometimes they end with a woman choosing not to answer the phone, or choosing to laugh, genuinely, for the first time in weeks. Sometimes the twist isn't what you uncover in others, but what you rediscover in yourself. I'm not angry anymore, and I'm not afraid. I'm just finally home.